Welcome back, everybody, to the podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic that honestly makes a lot of business owners uncomfortable, and that is AI is going to eliminate certain businesses. Not all businesses, but definitely some. And the crazy part is, most of the businesses at risk don't even realize they're vulnerable yet because the businesses AI eliminates first are usually not the smallest. They're the slowest, the ones stuck in old habits, the ones still running on inefficiency and hoping customers tolerate it forever.
Yes, right. And I think that's the part that most people misunderstand. Everybody thinks that the Terminator's going to come in and just replace you, start sitting in your desk, take over your computer. But something more practical is going on. What's happening is that companies are losing to the companies that move a lot faster with AI.
Yeah, and customers don't compare you to your competitors anymore. They compare you to the best experiences they've ever had from other companies like Netflix, Uber, Amazon. Instant responses, instant updates. Now people expect that from everyone.
Totally. And that's why I think AI is exposing weaknesses so quickly these days, right? So that's what we're going to dive into today. And honestly, this shift is just happening way faster than most people think. So now's the time for us to really understand what's going on behind the scenes. So why don't we start here? I don't think AI's first wave is going to replace humans. We see that in the news, and we see the headlines, and people are calling it a major disruptor. People, are posting articles out there. If you look at the news, what do we see? Oh, AI slashing jobs, and layoffs all over the place, and everyone's blaming AI. And I'm looking at a Harvard Business Review article right now, and it's titled "How AI Will Likely Change These Jobs." And they do a good job. They break down the asymmetric impact of generative AI. And what I like is they've historically for the past, I don't know, 10 years, graphed out how automation has affected certain jobs, certain roles, and recently we see automation jobs uh, less posted less frequently. There's less openings for automation roles. But what is increasing though are roles that could be complemented by augmentation. Augmentation is exactly where AI fits, right? So think of, like, I don't know, a receptionist, or a scheduler, or a note taker. Those are the jobs that you think would completely disappear, but according to Harvard study, we're seeing more and more job openings posted, in those areas, even though we're also seeing a massive adoption of AI in those fields. So the industries where Harvard goes into a little bit more uh, detail. I'm looking at the article here. Looks like real estate agents, investment fund managers, software developers, chemical engineers, and it's all over the place. But those are like the most impacted roles, and not even negatively impacted, positively impacted. So you think, just based on hearing all the doom and gloom news, the articles, that, oh my gosh, layoffs, yeah, the future is bleak, it's horrible. But certain industries, like Harvard found, are actually benefiting from AI, and there are more jobs in those areas. So they go on to say, like, where can generative AI help and assist, and it's generating a lot of buzz, a lot of opportunity. Also, in interior design, in robotic technicians, family medicine. We talked about that at the last one of the last episodes, Angel, where I think you did Amazon's
Yeah,
medical
medical
review.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So a lot of opportunities there. So that I mean, I find that fascinating. I find that interesting, in contrast to, again, all the negative news that we're seeing. And maybe it's because, negativity sells, right? That's what catches the eye. and it generates clicks, and that's what these news publishers are going for. But based on empirical evidence and research conducted, we're seeing maybe that's not the total picture. So just some things to be aware of.
Cool. Yeah, no, 100%. What comes to mind is all the businesses are losing customers simply because they're hard to deal with. It could be staff that doesn't answer the phone. It could be staff that never follows up. Um, or it could be that the staff just doesn't communicate clearly. And every little mistake like that adds up.
Yeah.
So with AI now, that's stuff that can be automated.
Yeah. Um, so one thing you just said, right, of follow up and things like that. A lot of businesses, a lot of companies, a lot of offices, they ask, well, what can I do, right, to improve, I don't know, improve sales? What can I do to generate more patients in the medical field? What can I do to generate more leads in real estate? And sometimes it's not doing more, but how fast you do those things.
Yes.
And so today we live in a world where it's user experience, customer experience. I've talked about this here at our office before, like how Disney, they sell an experience, right? Their parks. I've mentioned Tesla before as a company. The whole buying experience, is very different from going to a traditional dealership. So how can we implement an improved experience, in some of the traditional businesses, medical, real estate, you name it. And the easiest thing you can do is the rate at which you respond to customer requests. We live in a day and age where everything is instant. You go on Amazon, you want to order something, 2 days, yes please. Your Uber Eats, your Grubhub, like, yes, deliver this. And you usually sort it by quickest delivery time first, right? So it's like fast, fast, fast. That's kind of what we've come to expect as a society. And in business and the industries that we serve and we work in, that we need to think of that and how to do that. And AI is, I think, one of the tools that could be used for that. So think about like a patient, who wants to find out if an insurance is covered at their doctor's office, because maybe they got a new insurance, maybe they switched jobs. You know what? Maybe they want to see if Monday, which is a holiday, is the office open. What are they going to do, right? They typically call, but if the front office doesn't answer, or they happen to be flooded with phone calls, inundated with other taskings, and they don't get to the call on time, well, guess what? That patient may call somebody else, or they may go to the next business or whatever. So speed, I think, is a very big competitive advantage, and you can do that with AI. Have AI, I think, trained on some of your facts, your business um, information, and it can handle these types of questions quicker, faster. It can even look for an availability, or maybe you're selling actual products, tangible products, and you can ask a chatbot, hey, do you carry this cup, or do you carry whatever, and the AI can check inventory. And it could be a chatbot, it could be a voice AI, it could be email automation happening in the back end, it could be integrated in your website. There's different ways in how to apply some of these technologies, but overall to deliver a better and faster, more efficient experience for the customer.
Yeah, and definitely customers are becoming a lot less patient. If someone wants an answer, I'm pretty sure they want it now. That's something that I've been seeing in a lot of practices. There's a few that we've already set up phone systems for, or in case they ask or they press certain options, it'll give them kind of the answer.
Yeah.
Have you seen that recently?
Yeah, for
Alexa?
sure. I feel like nowadays everyone is just so used to getting to that experience, and it could be for like anything. People crave like results just so that they don't have to, wait as people did back in the day. People crave speed, and they'll definitely go towards something that gives them that as quick as possible. And let's say if a patient were to fill out a form online and they were to get a response like the next morning, they would rather pick a company that would give them a response immediately, like after submitting a form. So that's just the way the world works now, and it's better to go along and be a part of that than to be behind that. So
Yeah. So this is also where it starts to become dangerous, right? Because what happens to old school companies that refuse to adopt some of these tools that we're seeing today? Well, we don't have to look no further than you know maybe 15, 20 years ago when smartphones started becoming more prevalent. um, what happened during that era, like the mid early 2000s. Companies that didn't have a presence on an app or something, right? They started to fall behind, and um, customers, one of the first things they do is like, oh, do you have an app, right? Like let me log in, let me create an account on your app. Let me join your loyalty program. Starbucks, right? It was all about collecting those stars every time you got a coffee, or Dunkin' Donuts, or yeah, McDonald's for sure. And there's so many examples like that, where in the early 2000s, like that was a craze. Like the companies that were experimenting and doing stuff like that were ahead of everybody else. And let's rewind even further. What happened to companies that refuse to maybe have a website? They got forgotten, because late 1990s, if you were looking up, hey, where do I go to, I don't know, a hair salon or a nail salon, or I'm looking for this, everyone would Google it back then. You'd search for it, hair salon near me, or whatever. And so the companies that didn't have an internet presence, they became forgotten. So
that's actually very true. Sorry to cut you off, but earlier this week, kind of relating to what you are just saying, I was looking for somewhere to do my lashes, and obviously the first thing you do, go to Google, lash salon near me.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing all of these lash salons in the valley, and I'm going based off of their reviews, whichever one has the most stars. And there was one that seemed really good, and it was really near me, but they didn't have a website, they didn't have an app. I didn't know where to book, if I should call. And then, well, there was another salon below that. It also had good reviews. They had pictures of the salon. It looked great. They had a website. They had an app. It made booking so much more easier. But if the other one had an app, they would have gotten me as a client. So I feel like that's another reason why people need to be like ahead of the curve, because it's so easy for people to be distracted, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
People gravitate towards what's easier.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the first businesses that AI will eliminate. I think that's the title of our episode, right? Ooh, drum roll, please. It's businesses with terrible follow-up systems. And there are so many of them. So many of them nowadays.
And so many of them are spending money on advertising, and nobody is fast enough to get those leads.
Yeah.
Definitely. Since we work mostly with dentists, I'm even seeing that in our dentist clients. Some of them don't, well, not that they don't do it, but they get so busy with their day to day that they may forget to follow up with certain patients. That's really a big problem, because what if the patients are waiting for a part, or for
Mm-hmm.
some type of printing to get them back to put it on? What if they forget, right? Who's going to follow up with that patient? So
Yeah.
definitely systems or AI that can be doing that in the background will help the dental practice go by.
Yeah. So I mean, and we also hear how they think they have a marketing problem, right?
Hmm.
They understand that they need to maybe improve. We always have to be improving, but they typically go like, "Hey, let's do more ad spend," like Alexa was saying on marketing. Let's throw more money here, but that's hardly the answer because they don't realize that they have leads coming in. They have calls, they have people on their website, but that's information that they're not operationalizing, or they're not reacting to. Capture those leads from those websites, from
Hmm.
social media. Also, go back into maybe old stale patients, and maybe use AI to analyze some of those historic patients. Those are already customers that and patients that have been to your business, right? So the burden of trying to convince them that your product is good is less. It should be easier to reach out to existing clients and patients. And so we had an experience recently, Angel. I don't know if you want to, if you care to share, with one of our dental clients, and we have a product called Sleeping Beauty, and I'll let you kind of share that story if you'd like.
Yeah, pretty interesting story. There was a dental practice here in the Edinburgh location. We recently helped them out get more leads. Um, it got to the point where we needed to turn off our lead generator just because they were getting a lot of leads back. And one of the front staff was kind of stressed out, right? She was freaking out, like, "Oh, damn, we've never been this busy."
Yeah, they kept
um,
saying, "Man, our phones are ringing off the hook." Right.
mhm,
Well, first, this doctor was like, "Hey, it's been kind of quiet, right, for
mhm,
a couple weeks, 2 3 weeks, and things are slowing down." And then after we turned on our Sleeping Beauty product,
yeah,
that was a comment like, "Man, our phones are off the hook. Like,
mhm,
we need to pause it." This, so I
yeah,
would say, that's a good example of you know being aware of where your leaks are happening, leaks of
mhm,
like leads, of efficiency, of making things, enhancing them, making them better. So that takes us to our second category of businesses that will be eliminated by AI. This is our
yeah,
forecast, and this is kind of what we're seeing in the industry. And that is businesses and companies that are purely very manual and hands on without any kind of automation or systems in place. And what comes to mind, maybe some of the trades like plumbing, maybe HVAC companies, anything kind of in that line of work. You look at it, or you think about how they operate, and very little automation and technology and AI implementation. So if those companies began to take on some of these AI tools, oh my gosh, they would be way ahead of the
mhm,
competition. Huge, huge difference. And those that don't obviously will kind of get lost and forgotten. So yeah, that's kind of that is our second
mhm.
category of
Yeah,
groups.
and I do want to add, sometimes those dental practices just get too busy. Like there's patients that have problems during the day, so they don't always have the time to be doing patient outreach. So this is where AI can come in and help with that. Um, Perfect example for this practice. They just opened up a second practice. They had to divide their staff, so maybe the patient outreach wasn't being done because they were on both practices, but that's where Sleeping Beauty came in, and we took over all of their patient outreach and
Hmm.
gave them the opportunity to see all those patients.
Yeah, and that makes
Hmm.
people feel uncomfortable, I think, right? Because it starts to,
It gets them psychologically worried, like, oh,
yeah,
I'm gonna get replaced.
yeah, they start to worry.
Whereas they should be happy that they're getting all of this business.
Hmm.
They can grow maybe a third practice from there.
Right, right,
Um,
and that the term augmentation, comes to mind, right? We're not
mhm,
using AI to replace. And I don't think I don't think we're anywhere near the point in time where AI will completely replace a human, but it'll augment their work. So the uncomfortable truth is we get stuck in busy work, and that's because we're all busy. I'm busy, you're busy, and we know things need to get done, so we just get it done, whether it's paperwork or emails or text messages or whatever reports need to be done. But we don't think, wait a minute, do I need to be the one to do this? And today, the answer is no. You can augment that, give it to an agentic AI process, give it to some sort of automation bot, build a system around that, and it should alleviate all that manual effort and work, so that that person now, their role is to supervise the automation process, making sure it runs consistently, and make better use of their time that they used to dedicate to that manual work. Maybe it's re-engaging with customers, maybe it's connecting with people, and building those relationships, and finding other areas within the company to improve. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. And it's not that the people that were doing this, that they're doing a bad job. It's that the speed, again, going back to the speed at which AI can do this is just unmatched. The speed and efficiency, so, and people will always be central to business and relationships and everything, and people aren't going away. It's just improving the quality of that person's job and work and role.
And it'll also build like loyalty towards the company too,
Yeah.
because they know they're getting a great experience. And I also feel like it'll open more job opportunities too, because now that they're cutting that time of that busy work, they can now build more on that. Like how you mentioned, now they can open a new practice.
Yeah.
Now that they could have way more employees that could do so much more. There's so much potential when it comes to AI, like viewing it as a tool rather than replacement. I love that. And then you can also cut down on like manual work, like reviewing documents. That's now instant with AI.
Yeah. And another thing that we're seeing is that we're still talking about like quality, right? Customers aren't always going to complain. If they encounter a business where things are kind of slow or there's no response, typically, most of the time, sometimes you'll have those that complain on Google reviews and Facebook or whatever, but most of the clients, they just kind of disappear into the background, and they get forgotten, and they forget about you. And so as a business owner, as a doctor, as a office manager, that's something that we should probably be aware of, and try and improve. But it's also an opportunity, right? When we start to ask these questions and realize this, the opportunity is, now with AI, with automation, with agentic AI processes, the businesses that benefit the most are the small businesses, because they're quick to adapt, new processes, new technologies. They're not overburdened by red tape, by bureaucracy and approvals. You can more easily choose to, hey, we're going to use Claude Cowork to create my morning routine every day, and they just do it. Whereas a big corporation, there's a slower process. You have to maybe allocate funds to a budget and get approvals and all sorts of other things. But a small business can quickly start to adopt these things. And we've said it before here on this podcast, that AI is the great equalizer. So small businesses could definitely compete on quality and speed and scale as some of these major corporations.
And definitely a small business can immediately start to respond faster by automating communication, streamlining the scheduling. Just how Alexa brought up, like if that Lash Studio had the scheduling thing, they would have definitely gotten that
Yeah.
sale from her. Yeah, and
I feel like nowadays small companies, they're sort of a little bit too stubborn because new is scary for everyone, especially with the way things are now. Everything's going so fast and evolving to something different, especially companies. But I feel like a lot of small companies, they don't realize that right now because they don't do research or they're not looking at social media right now. I feel like people are stuck with the old because the old is reliable, which makes
I
sense.
feel like what I've seen is like very polarizing opposites. I feel like there are some companies operating like it's 2012, going up against companies operating like it's 2030 in the future, and so we're seeing that gap widen more and more as time goes on. And the thing about AI is it runs so fast, it changes so fast from one week to another. So that gap is just going to continue getting bigger and bigger. So what do you think about like just relationships and trust and empathy when it comes to AI, Alexa, and or
I
Android?
think it still struggles a lot with that human connection. Like, yeah, sometimes when I ask AI to edit an email, sometimes I have to edit it, like not put that many exclamation marks because it looks like I'm too happy. Um, so yeah, you gotta tone it down. It's Monday morning. I'm not that excited. But yeah, no, it definitely struggles with that. But as long as you still have that one person reviewing those text messages, reviewing those emails,
hmm
you should still benefit from using it.
Yeah. So about your tonality, your tone,
Yeah.
right, on AI. One of the things that I've done so that AI can learn my tone better is I will export like my last 50 emails and text messages, and I'll just throw it at ChatGPT or Claude, and I say, hey, these are my emails, these are my text messages, remember my style of communication. So next time, like say tomorrow, I'm just too busy, I need AI to just respond to most of my emails. I'll tell it respond in my tone, and it knows my style of communication.
Remember my emojis that I
Yes,
use.
yeah. No,
The
do that. I mean, and that's we're talking about like the humanizing part of AI.
Hmm.
That's one little quick tip, for those that are starting to use AI or curious in how they can implement it. And again, it can be done safely and in incremental steps. So I know some people are nervous, like, oh, I don't want to give my entire inbox, to AI. I don't want it to respond to all my emails. You could set up certain guardrails. You could set
Hmm.
up certain rules. For example, hey, if I get an email that talks about this, or that, or from these people, then respond in my tone. Those are like really easy ways to start to use AI before we even get into how businesses can implement automation, right? So, on that note, what are some other ways that maybe um, companies can start to think about AI? I threw out one example on emails, like what are some things that
You
could
can,
help
I mean, you can let it take over your inbox, but maybe just draft out and
draft?
you
Yep,
going back in there, just
and just
making
hit
sure,
send.
yeah,
Yeah, I like
make
that.
make some edits and then click send.
Yeah, maybe adding some filters in there
Mhm.
just to make sure it doesn't go a little overboard.
Yeah.
Like maybe with a little bit like more personal information, keep it generic.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
So what we do on our daily stand-ups, this, we have an AI listening in to all of our teams meetings, and after the meeting, the AI will listen for action items and create those action items in our to-do list, our company to-do list that we use. It can schedule things automatically, visits with clients, and then it will call out maybe any task that's assigned that hasn't been actioned on or updated in a couple days. So that way nothing falls through the gaps there, through the cracks. So those are ways where AI is like helping us make sure we're delivering a quality experience to our customers. So that's probably more intermediate, and I wouldn't even call that advanced, but something like that is not very complicated to do, but I'll tell you, it's super helpful, very helpful. It's like having somebody right next to us constantly reminding us, hey, you got to get this done. Hey, you forgot about that.
Yeah, and we're human, like we forget stuff all the time. That's just who we have. So many tasks you have to do throughout the day, not only in work but after work too. And there'll probably be like one task that maybe got lost in translation. There's so much more going on. And now that we have that AI tool, it's like, oh yeah, what about this? Oh, okay. Yeah, now we have just as much attention to that task as every other task that's assigned right now.
Remember when we were testing it, it kept calling out one of our other colleagues and coworkers like 20 times because it was going
Yeah.
through all the initial
Yeah.
Jira stories that hadn't been updated in a couple
Yeah.
days. So I mean, without it, those things may have gotten forgotten. So we're really in exciting times where we have the power to do that, even as a small business. And I think everyone should be looking into those things. Another area, one last idea, is like when it comes to either scheduling, right, or basic questions. A chat bot on a website, could be connected to an AI in the in the back end, and that's already kind of old. Like I feel like a chatbot is not that cutting edge anymore, but like even something as simple as that, putting that little plug-in on your website, where someone can ask, hey, are you open tomorrow? What time do you close? Or I have this issue, right? Who can help me? And having the AI kind of respond according to your business is incredibly powerful. And then on the scheduling side, like our front office, is always busy with, fielding phone calls, whether you're here or your doctor's office or, you're a retail shop, and having maybe an AI that can help answer some of those calls and take either notes or put something on a schedule. Really, really powerful stuff that I think we all need to be looking at. We're going to see more and more of that.
Yeah, it's always removing the friction because
Hmm.
sometimes the employee is busy, right? She couldn't respond to a email, a text message, so it doesn't. It gives a bad impression to the customer, like, oh, they don't really care about me, right? I would honestly rather a faster response, even though I know that it's AI, than like an actual person sending that out. Like as long
Yeah.
as I get my response on why my package was late, that would make me feel 10 times better than like an actual person, right?
It kind of seems like they're just putting in more effort
Mhm.
compared to other companies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all those systems can be built out super cheap, super easy, super fast.
Yeah. So what businesses will AI eliminate first? The slow ones, the
Hmm.
reactive ones, the businesses that can't get rid of inefficiency. But for those that want to adapt, this is one of the biggest opportunities we've seen in years. So again, start small, improve your communication, improve your follow-up, reduce that friction that you're talking about, Angel, and that's where the real transformation starts. And you're going to see benefits, you're going to see results quickly.
And companies that are adapting today are gonna look unbelievably advanced in a few years.
No question.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with another business owner trying to figure out where AI is really heading. And as always, stay adaptive, stay sharp, and keep building smarter. We'll see you next time.